If you hear the Barack Obama remarks from late last week, he was longing nostalgically for the days in which it was just ABC, NBC, and CBS, and information was controlled, right? We didn't have all these internet hacks and trolls out there pushing so-called disinformation. And I'm sure that was a much more delightful time for people in the position like he had at the White House. But think of all the lies that have been told to us over the years from people in that post that the evening news, for whatever reason, went along with or had an incentive not to check too far into. And today it's no different. You know, today it's like, okay, do we not think that the people at Fox were manipulated by Trump? Do we not think that the people at every other network are manipulated by Biden? Like, that's the way it works.
Right. But the problem is people have an alternative now. They have a way to get around that, which they didn't have before, as President Obama noted. And I remember this pretty graphically because I was a campaign reporter in 2004 and 2008, back in those alleged salad days, or I guess towards the end of them. And I would be on the bus listening to journalists talk about which candidates they thought were serious or electable and which ones weren't. So, you know, you'd be in a bus full of CNN and Fox and MSNBC anchors, and they'd be scoffing at Dennis Kucinich, saying, no, we're not going to take him seriously. And then there would be some other candidate like John Kerry, like, oh, he's electable, or, you know, and they made those judgments, and they were important judgments because, you know, what they signaled to audiences back then had an enormous impact on how voters behaved at the ballot box. It's different now. Like, you know, and ironically, Barack Obama was a beneficiary. He was one of the first people to lose the so-called invisible primary, which of donors, and still win the nomination. But then when Trump broke through in 2016, that was really when the chokehold of those networks collapsed, and they missed that. They really do.
Mm-hmm. And so how do we think this is going to work? I mean, this woman can't really crack down on anything. Like, the DHS is going to come try to, censor what happens on your show, on this show, on your Substack? Like, how on earth is this going to work?
I don't know. I mean, but I think we've already seen that they'll go to pretty extraordinary lengths to try to have influence over information that's online. We've seen in the last 6 years that there's been pretty extraordinary cooperation between the Senate, between bodies like the CDC and the FDA, and platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I mean, I did a story randomly about a podcaster who was having trouble with YouTube. And when I called them up for comment and asked them what they decided was how they decided what was misinformation and what wasn't, they just told me outright that they made those decisions in consultation with federal agencies. Wow. So I think this is the world we're going to be living in, where we have basically a privatized speech landscape, but there are going to be political actors from the government that are going to be influencing the moderation decisions of those platforms.
It's very, we're going a lot closer to blatantly protected First Amendment speech. Like the reason Twitter and Facebook and YouTube can censor content is because they're not the government. They're pretty close. They're pretty close to having the power and certainly the fingerprints of the government all over their editorial decisions. But technically, still, the law does not recognize them as the equivalent of, or certainly as an actual government actor. Not the case for DHS, that they're not allowed to censor our speech. So I don't really know what they think they can do, but they may be sad to realize it's written right there in the First Amendment. They're not allowed to censor speech. There's a teeny tiny category they get to touch, and the vast majority of what they're going to object to won't be in it.
That's true, but somebody still has to do the test case. They have to file that lawsuit and win that First Amendment case. And, who's going to do that? The reality is these government agencies have already been meddling with speech on private platforms, whether it's the FDA and the CDC, sort of encouraging platforms like YouTube to go by their guidelines and deciding what's misinformation and what isn't. Or it's the FBI, which has been in consultation with some of these platforms about things like hate speech and which groups might need cracking down on. So, yes, you're right. I think there's already a powerful First Amendment argument that they've crossed a line, but that has to be challenged. And who's going to issue that challenge? It's a very difficult road ahead. I mean, the possession is 9/10 of the law, and if they're already doing this, it has to be undone. It doesn't matter if it's illegal.
This episode of The Megyn Kelly Show is sponsored by the Claremont Review of Books, a quarterly journal of original essays and book reviews that the smartest conservatives in America read from cover to cover. Widely regarded as the intellectual nerve center of the conservative world, the Claremont Review of Books is one of the only places where important new books and ideas are treated seriously and in depth by reviewers who know what they're talking about, many of whom you will recognize because we've had them on our show. Victor Davis Hanson, Sarab Amari, Heather McDonald, John Daniel Davidson, to name just a few. You can get a sampling of the exceptional content they publish, along with a special offer, at ClaremontReviewOfBooks.com/MK. Claremont is spelled CLAREMONT. Listeners of The Megyn Kelly Show will receive a free bonus issue of the publication when you sign up for a 1-year subscription. That's 5 issues for the price of 4 at the low cost of $19.95. If you love great writing and thoughtful insights on everything from politics to history, philosophy, music, art, and sports, then sign up to start receiving the best read for the most well-read today at ClaremontReviewOfBooks.com/MK. Again, that's CLAREMONT, reviewofbooks.com/MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.